Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
For all I know, I could be an example of that.
Right.
You know, I'm not going to put myself on a pedestal. I will say that Bill Knott, though, is at 0.5%. That one person who just seems to be doing his own thing and just gets accolades from Strand. Simic did a really nice piece on him a while ago. I think I found that on his tour when I visited a couple of years ago. But yeah, very fascinating figure. And I had not met him. I had not taken a class to him prior to him picking me as his thesis head. I had literally Squales and Mazer in my class. The problem was I had taken too many professors I was going to go into the writing and publishing. I changed to creative writing, but I lost too many electives and my choice of teachers were limited. So I basically sent out postcards, letters really, saying that, you know, can you teach me? I can show you my work. Bill Knott was the only one to respond with a 2-sentence postcard saying, I will head your thesis committee, talk to me in September.
Okay. Now, who else did you study with besides Knott and Mazer?
Those three were it. I took. I had the privilege of taking classes with DeWitt Henry.
Oh, who Plowshares, isn't he?
Founder of Plowshares. At that time, he was actually running through autobiographical manuscript of the history of Plowshares, which is amazing.
Started at the Plow and Stars.
At the Plow and Stars.
Peter O'Malley was the bartender who was involved in it, if I believe.
Mm-hmm. And one of my regrets is not saving the original rough drafts of that piece, which actually included his, things leading up to his marriage. One piece he did not give us had to deal with like one of his former partners and how he broke off with that partner, which was a really touching story, even as he just read it out loud in the rough draft phases.
You know, I wonder if those morons who brought the Plow and Stars to court over the noise violations realized the rich history that the Plow and Stars has, literary and all that.
Yeah, most likely not, and that's why poetry unfortunately is underground, because it just escapes notice. But there's potential there. We're totally we're totally away from the media eye, the thing that just has to homogenize everything.
But no, how about this MFA program? Let's say what would you have about a young guy out of college? Say, I want to be a writer, I'm going to go with my MFA. Would he just learn, would this help him at all? Or would he become some sort of clone, writing about...
I think it can only help him.
Right.
You know that there's a big stage dispute, whether or not it's imaginary, whether or not it's actually real. There is one that's talked about. And I think you can produce clones whichever scene you come from, whether it's the stodgy the MFA people seem to view it as, or if it's the rebellious slam poets. There's great poets in every scene, and there's chances of making drones in every scene, no matter what. The only thing I would say in terms of MFA programs is that it makes you read, and that's one of the problems I had when I suddenly decided to be a poet. One of my earliest influences was Hart Crane, because he was one of maybe 3 poets I had read in a high school that did not really push poetry, did not push modern poets.
Don't jump off a boat or anything, will you? Don't jump off a boat, will you? Was it a bridge or a boat?
I think it was a boat. I think it was...
Was it a boat?
It might have been a bridge to memory, but that's how long ago I read Hart Crane, and that's how much I hold him as an influence today, I guess. But I did not have any resources available to me, and that's what worries me about a lot of poets. Yes, you can criticize MFA programs. Philip Levine, when he has an amazing essay in one of his only autobiographical book, The Bread of Time, where he talks about just that very process and while he's talking about learning under John Berryman. And I can definitely agree with one of those things. But I think I have to agree, as he does, that the MFAs they're where it's at these days, in the sense that...
Well, I was just going to say, Gary Dorr, the poet. You're familiar with Gary?
Yes.
Well, we had him on the show, and he went to the Ira Writers Workshop. And he said to me, basically, it all depends on the teachers you have. And the other thing is, one good thing about it is like you're in a hothouse atmosphere with all these young writers, and it's a good atmosphere. It's like almost when you leave there, you're like you're a war veteran coming out into the real world, because you figure your whole world is poetry. Mm-hmm. So you're immersed in this hothouse atmosphere, and that can't help but be helpful to the poet in the seminal stages. Mm.
I would agree that it's the teacher too, but it's also the student.
Okay.
You can have really awful teachers, and you can have really good teachers, but it's really what the student puts into it. I mean, I was blessed to have Mazer, Squales, and ultimately Knott, who in the one poetry workshop I took to it with him, hated everything I did. It was just a bad time. I literally I saved everything I've ever written for workshops, including drafts, saved nothing from that. I literally blocked it from my memory, and that's how bad it was. But ultimately, there was a turnaround because when Bill Knott read my manuscript, my thesis, the thing that had to be critiqued by both him, Scoils, and Mazer, he was literally giving me accolades in the middle of an unrelated class.
Wow.
But I mean, just really. Sorry, I think I went off track. But
no. Well, let's see if we have a legitimate call. Do you have a question for our...
Somerville Community TV?
What's that?
Hello?
Yes, how can I help you? Do you want to speak to our guest?
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me. Well, I don't know why that is.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry. I can barely hear you. Can I help you?
This is a poem in itself. I think we have cross calls there. Can I help you? I was supposed to help her.
That was too funny.
All right.
Now, people crying for help. No, that's a line.
Yeah, you won a Cambridge Poetry Award for your chap, Self-Portrait and Fire. Now, what inspired you to compile this collection? Is there a theme? Is there a theme to the book?
At the time I had written it, at the time I had conceived the book. I mean, because I had written the poems years before. Some of the poems as early as 1994, like The Cup. At the time I had written it, at the time I was compiling it, I was actually about to leave Boston, move to Rhode Island, and actually get into a relationship. And at that point, me writing it all seemed very circumspect. I had spent years in a bad work situation, a bad living situation, and as a result,
partners in healthcare.
No, actually, seafood restaurant. Hopefully you didn't hear it, but seafood restaurant for 5 years, and just a bad, very, very bad living
Legal?
situation.
Right.
Yeah, I'd rather not say, but you thought I went off track before. I'll really go through, but
let's just try this once more. See if we have a question. Do you have a question for our guest? Okay, it was nasty. Anyway, go ahead.
My God. All right, but so at the time I had conceived the book, I was literally down to a poem a day, a poem a year. And first in the series was one of the final poems I had done. I just figured, this is it. I'm going to be 29 soon, pushing 30. This might be the last time. This might be my final statement. And as far as an overall theme,
what, are you going to die at 30 or what?
Well, I was very afraid of my muse dying at 30. I mean, I can't tell you how many people went through the writing programs and ended up just not doing anything, not doing a damn thing. And I can tell you, like, people who went through journalism classes and didn't end up doing anything. So, I mean, that mindset, though, always hovered over me. And I worked around waiters that always said they were going to do something, but ultimately...
Never did.
Never did. And if I was not so lucky to... get help from my girlfriend Cheryl, to whom the first in the series poem is dedicated. That's the poem that won the Cambridge Poetry Award.
Well, why don't we just read that?
Sounds like a plan.
Sounds like a plan.
First in a series, for Cheryl. The woman who cuts my hair when you'd rather keep it long told me once, to be more difficult, that she and her boyfriend never discuss old soulmates, even in passing. Unaware that she was condemning our first week of phone calls, as we validated to each other why we had chosen to be alone before scrambling for a shared time and place. Also condemned was my thesis of poems you asked to read, a hardbound summary of my life's expectations before they were overwhelmed that first night as I ran to and from payphones to call your cellular, only yards apart, but wanting to pinpoint the latitude and longitude of our meeting spot so I could flag it with a rose. Famous poems can be read like unearthed crimes long gotten away with. Unpublished, they are the 6 o'clock news piece that airs long after the gun runs out of smoke. After showing you my credentials, almost forgetting the endless female references, you were kind, deemed me bitter and funny. Still callous, you asked if I planned to write about you with equal tact. I almost asked you then, what would you do to be in my thoughts enough for that to happen? Neither question fair at the time, best unanswered by words, at least then. A week before your birthday, waiting for you to fetch me from the station, I open my sketchbook of words and think, deadlines are good, as I write in anticipation of you snooping while I sleep. You asked for a poem, and before, you asked if I loved you, liked your children, wanted to move from Boston. In poetry, they are all the exact same question I'll continue to answer with each new white sheet. Ask me if you should expect a change of mind, and I'll say no, just a better draft we are both happy with for each moment.
Let's see why I won an award.